So, they have beaten you, huh? Your quest is over? What if it's only beginning? Some of the most fearsome rulers through history have possessed only a fragment of the Chintamani stone. What would a man become if he possessed the stone itself?
It has been a very, very long while since I've last entered into the Uncharted series. My last review was of Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, the original Uncharted game, and I was pretty positive about that game back when I reviewed it. You can go back and see that review back when my quality wasn't quite there on the channel. I still think my quality can improve, but regardless, it's been a while since I've reviewed Uncharted. And so, the thing is that there's the new Uncharted movie coming out. It'll probably be out by the time this video gets out. I usually record these videos in advance, but that has got me in the mood for the Uncharted again, and I continued on with the second game, Uncharted Among Thieves. Now, interesting thing about a lot of games, especially this one, a lot of people love the sequel better than the first one, and I tend to hate it more than the first one. Case in point, Halo 2. Did not like that sequel compared to the first one. Talking about the original Halo 2, not the Anniversary Edition, which fixed like every problem that I had with the original. You can see those reviews in my videos. But also, like Mass Effect 2, I enjoyed the first one better. And Uncharted 2. So many people hold Uncharted 2 as the best Uncharted game ever made. And honestly, first one beats it hands down. Now, the question is this a terrible game? Let me get into that.
Sweep the city, find him, and take him out.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with Uncharted, it follows this adventurer slash thief slash, jack of all trades, Nathan Drake, as he tries to make it rich by plundering some tomb or whatnot. He's been equated with Indiana Jones or Tomb Raider, but, that's the difference, is he's more of a thief than he is an archaeologist, or what would you call Lara Croft? An amateur archaeologist? I don't know. With this game, probably the first thing that kind of threw me off about it was how it started. Now, I don't mean its opening scene. Its opening scene was really quite spectacular. And this game has a very cinematic presentation to it, making it feel like a huge summer Hollywood blockbuster. I mean, the camera angles and the point of views, the perspectives, the coloring, the camera setup is all incredible in this game. It feels like you're playing a movie, a summer action movie with like Tom Cruise in the lead. But the way the story starts off with just Drake being at a cantina bar, it's like, hey, you want to go steal this object with us? It's just like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. It worked so much better in the first one. I love how the first one started off. He was already on the search for it, and Ellie was the, unknown, and she was kind of the reason for the Witch's Cauldron. If you don't know what a Witch's Cauldron is a story term which you have something that helps fill in the audience with backstory. You can look this up on Google, the Witch's Cauldron, but case in point, when you have a character who's like the rookie and everything has to be explained to him, he is sort of a Witch's Cauldron. Or when you have someone spouting exposition, at a character for no reason, but it's for the audience, that is a sort of witch's cauldron. I'm sure I'll have an English literature major correct me on that, and by all means, go right ahead. That's how it was explained to me. And so I liked how that was handled in the first game more than this game. But the thing that I do absolutely love with all of these games is the diverse locations that they always get into these games. I mean, yes, the first game only took place in kind of one location, but the second game takes place in multiple locations. So you're getting to see, like, you know, the Middle East, you're getting to see the jungle, you're getting to see, you know, the frozen tundra, and you're getting to see, like, you know, they don't call it Kathmandu, but you get to see kind of a Kathmandu-like city. And so I loved the varied locations throughout this entire game. It definitely made me feel like I was experiencing like a James Bond, Indiana Jones high adventure with multiple locations. And you know how Indiana Jones always has the map with the little red line? Like, you feel like that. Another thing I absolutely loved was they do add in some more variations to weapons this time around. First game, it kind of felt like, yeah, you got like 2 assault rifles, 2 pistols, a shotgun, and that's about it. And this, it feels like you do get a large number of weapons to use, and some really cool ones. Like, I didn't think I would enjoy this so much, but the grenade launcher was a lot of fun. One of the biggest issues I had with this game was the platforming sections and the puzzles. So the puzzles are kind of non-existent in this game. They don't use that many puzzles that I saw my time playing through it. Not as much as like the first game or the third game. But they do have this one segment where you're platforming and you're dealing with this huge giant wheel, and there's nothing telling you how to proceed forward. You've never done this type of platforming before in the game, so there's no reason for you to think that these little white things on the side of the wheel are something that you can climb up. Nothing explains this. And I spent, I would say, a couple hours trying to get past this point, dying over and over and over again, trying to figure out how to get up onto this ledge. And I eventually had to go online and look it up, which is a huge red flag. You just lost something with me in terms of reviews, especially game reviews. If I have to go online to figure out how to proceed in your video game, you failed to a certain extent. The only question is, how badly did you fail? And so, yeah, this game is nowhere near as good as the first one for that one small reason. I know it seems like a small, insignificant reason, but when I review stuff, I hold things to a certain standard. And I expect to be able to get through a game without having to use outside help to get through it. And so that alone I was very disappointed with, but the platforming sections also feel really heavy-handed. And so, like, case in point, it felt like in the first game there were way too many firefights. In this game, it felt like there were way too many platforming sections. I spent more time platforming in this game than I did solving puzzles or fighting. I shit you not. This game is like 60% platforming, and that's being generous. It's more like 70 to 75% platforming. I mean, there is just so much platforming in this game. I kind of want to take a break from the series after this because it's just so much. Now, are there really fun platforming sections? Absolutely, but there's just so many segments of the game where you have to platform, and one of the biggest issues with the platforming is that the game constantly has this thing where someone goes through a door and they accidentally kick a stick that causes like a rock fall to happen in the doorway, and usually you get a line of dialogue like, oh, my bad. I guess you're gonna have to take the long way around. And so Nathan Drake has to do this hard, like, platforming segment to get around to where this other character is. That would be fine if it happened, like, twice in a game. It'd be fine if it happened, like, 5 times in a game. Hell, it'd be fine if it even happened, like, 10 times in a game. But no, this nonsense happened, like, 20 freaking times in this video game. To the point where every time it happened, I just rolled my eyes because I was so infuriated with this cliche where what the character you're going with goes through a door or a passageway and it just collapses or gets destroyed. It's like, whoop, sorry, guess you have to take the long way around. And it's just like, even if the prize at the end of the tunnel was actually real, there is no way this would happen this much in real life. And so it really took me out of the experience, them relying on the same cliche over and over and over again. I mean, this is Naughty Dog. They should know better than this. They should be able to do better than this. And so, another thing I didn't like about this game is Sully is in it, but he gets like a glorified cameo. That's it. He's in like one level, and then the way he leaves, it feels like they couldn't think of a better way for him to leave the game. It's just like, I feel too old for this, so I'm just going to leave you be. And it's just like, really? That's how you get rid of Sully? And then he shows up again at the end. It's like, oh, well, you know, sorry I can't be on the adventure with you kids. And it's like, and then the subsequent sequels, the amount of time Sully is in those games, it makes it seem like something weird was going on with the making of this game, where they didn't want to use Sully, because it just feels so weird how he leaves and how little he's used in this game. Now, one pro I will give this game is that the army of henchmen in this game make sense, because in the first game, like, the main antagonist was this gangster. It's like, okay, he's a gangster, but he's a gangster who has over 600 men under his command. Like, I'm sorry, I don't even know if the Italian mob has that many foot soldiers in New York or on the East Coast, even. Like, the entire Eastern Seaboard, I don't know if that's that many Italian mob members. Like, I don't know, maybe an Italian mobster could comment in the comments below and let us know what their force is. But I'm thinking it's not 600 strong, all armed with AK-47. So that was one of my biggest criticisms of the first game, is that this mobster had such a massive army. But in this game, it makes sense, because kind of the main villain is this, like, warlord that is responsible for, like, numerous war crimes, and he has his own military, his own private military. And so the story explained it better. So when I was fighting over 1,000 guys throughout the course of this game, I never once thought to myself, where the fuck are you getting all these guys from? I never once thought that in this game, because it's like, it made sense. Oh, you're a warlord, you have tanks, you basically just pillage villages, and so obviously you have a mass fortune. First game didn't make sense, because it's just like, I'm a gangster. How you have so many men? I'm a gangster. You're not going to explain it? I'm a gangster. Okay, I guess we're moving on. Now, this does lead to another criticism I have, is the main villain, Lazarevich. Lazarevich is one of the most one-dimensional villains I have ever experienced. I mean, like, there's no development into this character, and anytime he's on screen, it's just like, look how evil I am. I have a thick accent and I speak English. I am evil. Evil. Like, that's the extent of his development. And, like, look, I don't need a psychological, in-depth analysis of the villain, but, I mean, good gosh, the villain from the first game seemed to be a little bit deeper than this villain. It's just like, hey, guys, we made this really awesome adventure, but we don't have a bad guy. We got a few weeks to do it. Let's just throw something together real quick. That's how this villain felt. He did not feel well developed, and so I did not like him. And of course, the final boss battle is this lame bullet sponge, process. And there's a couple of cheats you can kind of do where, like, not cheats, but just like, if you just do this and this, you can win the fight easily. If you just try and, fight naturally, you'll get your ass kicked constantly because it's just a huge bullet sponge. But if you know what to do, it actually becomes very easy. But that being said, just everything about the main villain just did not work. Now, there were some truly impressive level designs, especially with the train sequence. The train sequence is probably one of the best sequences in the game, because never once did I feel like it reused the same environment as I was passing through. So as you're on this train, finding your way from the back to the front, you're basically seeing all of these locations. And typically a developer will try to, hide the locations passing by. They'll probably use the same thing going over and over and over again, as a quick fix. Not this developer. Naughty Dog went to the trouble of actually building this long, expansive view that you can watch as you're finding your way through this train. Never once did I see the same location twice. It was always someplace new, and I loved how it started off in the jungles of Nepal, or wherever it was, Tibet. I don't know where it was taking place, but it was kind of there. And as the train sequence is going, you find yourself going more and more into like a snowy region. So by the end of the train sequence, you're in the mountains, in the snow, and when you start off, you were in like the jungle. And they actually built that segment to match that environment, and so I absolutely loved the amount of work they put into the level designs. It was quite impressive. Now, I played this on the PlayStation 5. It was the Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection, which was a PS4 game. And the PlayStation 5 actually locks the frame rate to 60 frames per second. On the PS4, it targeted 60 frames per second, and on some of the less intensive scenes, it was able to hit 60 frames per second, but on some of the more intense scenes, it had trouble on the PlayStation 4. But on the PlayStation 5, it is a locked 60 frames per second, and it is absolutely gorgeous to look at with, the sharper resolution and the locked 60 frames per second. And this is a very, very beautiful game. It was beautiful on the PlayStation 3, and to this day, over 10 years later, this game is still a very beautiful game to look at. Another thing I absolutely loved is the 3D audio. Now, granted, it's not like anything fancy on the PlayStation 5 type of 3D audio, but at that time, they were using like a type of 3D audio for that game, and because of the Tempest engine on the PlayStation 5, I'm able to enjoy that without super expensive headphones, and so the 3D audio was pretty nice because I did have this right hemisphere, left hemisphere type of deal with certain audio sounds, and I really liked that. Water effects also looked really great, but like ripple reflection when your character was in the water was really janky. It really took me out of the experience. But when my character was like standing above water, I could see the reflection of the character in the water, and so there was some truly impressive lighting effects in this game. They did a really good job with water reflections and whatnot, and so overall, I really did enjoy this game. The voice acting was great. I loved some of the characters. I liked some of the returning characters. The graphics were beautiful. There were some fun firefights I had, but ultimately, this doesn't hold a candle to the first game. The first game, I thought, really nailed it. It really had that great sense of adventure. It had a lot of really fun puzzles. I felt like I didn't have to go online to figure out anything in the first game. I loved some of the twists they did in the first game. Some of the twists they did in the second game just didn't work for me. The villains did not work for me. Harry was an obnoxious cliche as a secondary fill-in. And so ultimately, with all that in mind, this is probably my least favorite Uncharted game. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the prize they're going after. I love the locations they did. I love the voice acting, but it just kind of missed the mark on a couple of locations. So because of that, I would say this wasn't as good as the first game. But that being said, if you can grab this in the Nathan Drake Collection, absolutely grab that trilogy. It's a fine trilogy. If you're still on PlayStation 3 and you're wondering, should I get this? Absolutely get it. It was one of the leading benchmark PlayStation 3 exclusives. You're going to have fun with this game, even if you agree with all my criticisms, because despite my faults I have with this game, it still was a fun time at the end of the day. And honestly, that's all I'm really asking for out of video games now these days. So, my name's Chris with 11th Hour Reviews. Please don't forget to, do the thing. And this has been my review of Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, and that will be all.